Okay, here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is. I hope it's good to be where you are, because it is certainly good to be here. My name is Baltimore Fats, and this is the end of Mud City. No, it's not really the end of Mud City, but Mud City is going to be changing, or becoming. Well, essentially, what I'm trying to say is, God damn it. Okay, no, it's not really the end of Mud City. But I am going to be starting a new channel or a new show. I don't know how I'm going to work it out. But I'm going to start one that focuses a little bit more on, that's a little more dedicated to the history and the people and things like that. And I think Mud City is going to be more the buildings and that kind of, more pictures and things like that. All right. As I'm going forward, because, I'm just learning so much about the early history, or what they tell us the early history of the English colonization efforts. I'll call them, right. So I was thinking of, I'm going to start this other show or channel, and I was going to try to make a commercial, and maybe I'll still do that now, but. So I was downloading pictures of these old explorers and company men, and I was noticing they have a John White, but as John Smith, right? And so how much Sir Francis Drake and Sir Walter Raleigh look alike. And so I was curious about why. Okay, so who's John White, right? And you can go there. What happened? Okay, here we go. So who is John White, right? And so he was a settler among those who sailed with Richard Grenville to present-day North Carolina in 1585, acting as artist and map maker to the expedition. Okay, so now, these dates are where it starts to get curious with the narrative that they sort of put forth in schools and stuff, at least when I was in school. And I know I grew up in New England, so I got the more New England slant. I'm sure down south they got the more Virginia angle. But they still kind of, I'm sure, pitched it much the same, that there was not much, and then bang, there was John Smith coming along and starting Jamestown, and the whole Lost Roanoke colony, I'm sure people know about that, is what's being referenced here, right? And but there was a lot more going on, right? There was a lot going on, and as I building the narrative, and centering it around whatever catastrophe that sunk the world in mud, it really, it really starts making a lot of sense. And so I wanted to read more about this guy, right? That they had his picture as John Smith. And so this is what got me here. During his time at Roanoke Island, he made a number of watercolor sketches of the surrounding landscape and the native Algonquin peoples. These works are significant as they are the most informative illustrations of a Native American society of the eastern seaboard. The surviving original watercolors are now preserved in the print room of the British Museum. White became governor of Sir Walter Raleigh's failed attempt at a permanent settlement on Roanoke Island, known to history as the Lost Colony, right? This was the earliest effort to establish a permanent English colony, and I don't believe that it was, in the New World. Right? White's granddaughter, Virginia Dare, was the first English child born in the Americas. So the very first American, Virginia Dare. But I want to let's take a look. It's going to be a lot of reading. This is what's going to come from the other channel. So White's exact date of birth is unknown, but seems likely he was born sometime between 1540 and 1550. Yeah, see, this is not okay. So I'm not going to go over his early life too much, but he was from London, right? And in the late 16th century, efforts to establish an English colony in the New World began to gain momentum, right? And White soon became an enthusiastic supporter. And now, in the other research that I've been doing, they talk a lot about this whole idea of selling people on colonizing America, right? Go to America, go to America. So White was sent by Sir Walter Raleigh as the Richard Grenville's artist illustrator on his first voyage to the New World. They encountered considerable difficulties and had to return to England in 1586. And now this is where in 1585 White had been commissioned to draw to life the inhabitants of the New World and their surroundings. So, in other words, it was his charge, and his paintings are the ones that set the standard for what we view Indian life as like pre-colonization, right? Here is the earliest, almost sort of like propaganda that you could imagine, right? And nice. Look at these totem poles with these creepy faces on them, right? And they're all dancing around, and and they make I'm going to read a little bit further from another source that talks about what could be happening in some of these pictures here, right? But these are pencil and watercolor, and the pictures like this, and I have others brought up, are what was sold to the British public and to the aristocrats and the money people, and it's interesting, as I mean, some of these animal ones are unbelievable. Look at the detail on this, and he and he got it wrong. The number of toes or whatever in this fin is, he got it wrong. Such a beautiful, such work and detail, and he gets something like that. No. They show the hut life, not even teepees, but huts, and right. And this one was kind of cool. That's how they got in, and they had this circular fence for defense. I don't know what what war was like for these guys, but I don't know. So this is this is it. This is where it begins. And I don't know what written accounts are out there, but in a society that is potentially illiterate, it's paintings like these that sell your message, right? And they were selling a lot. Not only were they trying to sell land, right, and trying to get people to buy land and do the farming, right, the planting. They got to plant. They were also selling it to the religious, missionaries and things like this. And so his story is really interesting. This is the guy who created the image that lasts to this day, of what Native Americans were like, right? And I say that because we really don't know, and I, the way they've rewritten our history, the way they're continuing to rewrite our history, it's happening left, right, and center, with people like Pulaski, right, and others, and with Mary had tipped me off to the 700 Club is rewriting the colonization of Virginia for us, and that's kind of what made me want to take a little closer look today, and Mary and I talked about this offshoot show, which is going to really focus on the religion and the history and the people, and so that's what kind of really sparked the interest there this morning. But let's get back to him now. So it gives you an idea of what he did, right? But there's more interesting information about him. Right. So these works are significant as they are the most informative illustration on the Eastern Seaboard and predate the first body of discovery voyage art created in the late 18th century by artists who sailed with James Cook. So that's like 200 years afterwards. More. 18th century, So those were the images. These were the images that were in people's minds in Europe for 200 years. They programmed it in. It's over 200 years. They made it part of our DNA, what Indians look like. So they had 200 years to do what they pleased and shape the narrative of what those people were, who they were. I mean, because, one thing I believe is that they were whatever the natives were, and I don't think they were these people. I don't think what these pictures, I don't think that's what the natives were here, by any stretch of the imagination. It's a lie. These English and the Spanish and the crown, because it's all the same, came over, and it was their task to see what they could recover over here, and they found people who were living and making, who knows what of what existed here, but I don't think it was this. I don't think it was this at all. And they recruited this John White. It was his job. All right, and you ever heard of the name John White before? I never heard it before today. There's Sir Walter Riley. We're going to be getting into him. All these guys are crazy. It's nuts, the story that they told. It's unbelievable. The lion is really symbolic in the fact that the name of the first ship was the Lion. I'm going to be getting into all of that. All right, and so the other show is I'm gonna start moving forward here, because this is what so this is almost like a trailer for. I don't want to say the name yet, because I have a great name for the show. So yeah, super important guy, lost, right? You don't really hear about him, but his story's in there. And one of the things, and he's going to lead to somebody else. How I find out about the other guy was I was reading our good old friends, the Smithsonian. They put out an article about this guy in 2008. Right? There must have been some anniversary or something, maybe. I like this. He talks about the loggerhead. He says their heads, feet, and tails look very ugly, like those of a venomous serpent, wrote Thomas Harriot, the expedition scientist, and that's what I'm getting to next, of New World tortoises. Nevertheless, they are very good to eat, as are their eggs. So this was about John White, and they talk about this Thomas Harriot guy. He wrote the book. So it was White's job to paint the pictures, and it was Harriet's job to write the book, at least according to the Smithsonian, and they have the book, right? And here he is, right? And look at this guy. This guy is unbelievable. All right? English astronomer, mathematician, ethnographer, translator who made advances with the scientific field. Right? Harriot was recognized for his contributions in astronomy, mathematics, navigational techniques. All right, but he wasn't a sailor. You know. When Harriot worked extensively on numerous papers on the subjects of astronomy, mathematics, and navigation, the amount of work that was actually published was sparse. So sparse that the only publication that has been produced by Harriot was the brief and true report of the newfound land of Virginia. Right? The premise of the book includes descriptions of English settlements and financial issues in Virginia at the time. And this is the 1580s. 1580s he went over there to do this. What financial settlements and financial issues, at the time? Okay. He's sometimes credited with the introduction of the potato to the British Isles, which is amazing to me. I thought the potato was native to Ireland. But they're saying this guy brought it back in 1580s. He was the first person to make a drawing of the moon through a telescope in 1609, 4 months before Galileo. Right? Interesting that he went to St. Mary Hall in Oxford. Right? And he was part of the Raleigh gang. And he is the one who writes the first translation of the language. Right? Because they bring back a couple of Indians, allegedly, right? Wanchese and Manteo, right? And he works out a phonetic translation of the language. And so he becomes very important for all the future expeditions, right, that go there. Because he wrote the book. You ever hear about Thomas Harriot? Born in Oxford in 1560. All right. All right. It says Harriet studied navigation shortly after receiving a bachelor's degree from Oxford University. So he studied navigation, but I don't know, he wasn't like a captain, right? That studied concentrated on the idea of the open seas and how to cross to the New World from the Atlantic Ocean. He used instruments such as the astrolabe and sextants to aid his studies of navigation. After educating himself, right, self-educated in this, by incorporating ideals from his astronomic and nautical studies, Harriot taught the other captains his navigational techniques in Raleigh. His findings were recorded in the Articon, but was later never found. Right? He's the guy. He taught all these sailors. He knew what the maps were. He knew how to navigate, but he was never a captain. He didn't go out and sail and build ships and stuff. All right? Yeah. He was the one using the astronomy to guide these people over here. And can't say I ever heard the name Thomas Harriot before today, right? And they give this guy so much props, but he has nothing. There's only one book published. But they talk about he is credited with the concept of refraction, and he and Johann Kepler, tight. All right. He was asked if the most effective way to stack cannonballs on the deck of a ship. The ensuing theory about the close packing of spheres shows a striking resemblance to atomism and modern atomic theory. Of stacking cannonballs, right? Which he was later accused of believing. His correspondence about optics with Johannes Kepler, in which he described some of his ideas, later influenced Kepler's conjecture. Look at this. Harriot, employed for many years by Henry Percy, the 9th Earl of Northumberland, with whom he resided at Sion House. Sion House. Wait a minute. Yeah. It looks just like those castles. Pardon me, that, the Iran with the Army Corps of Engineers. All right. This guy. Halley's Comet he's connected with. All right, it was Halley's Comet that got his attention. So wait a minute, that was 1607. When was this guy born? So he would have been 40. He would have been late in age already by that time. You know, this is a guy. This is a guy that they don't tell us about, or you don't hear that much about. He's not publicized like these other guys are. All right, super important. I like this. I think this picture's wrong. I mean, I can't tell the angle here, but I would think his back should be to us, looking where that moon is. I don't know. That's the way I see it, anyway. But just an incredible story here. So I'm going to wrap this one up. I just wanted to point out how, you know, how the white, and that's what I'm going to call this episode. I think it's going to be called Whitewash. You know, you want to talk about creating a narrative for people, you know, and your colonization efforts. They had 200 years to reinforce the savage story, the barbarian story. This guy wrote that story. Where is he? Oh, they don't have a good picture of him here. Whoever John White is in here, Governor John White, he painted the story. And it was propagated through the churches. And, you know, so it all starts with these guys, you know. And, you know, that's it. That's the whitewashing of the Native American. All right, it starts with these guys. All right, that's it. I hope I didn't go too long with this one. You know, please, everybody, take care of yourselves and each other, and everybody love everybody. All right, till the next one. Cheers, guys.